A client's not going to know everything about their environment. That's what they have us for. So we would have full visibility, right?
There should be a balance between what the client needs versus what the attack surface is telling us, right? Welcome back to Inside the Mesh. I'm Diego Ramirez, and today we're going to explore how does the life of a solutions architect look like at Bell Cyber. Shadeyar, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Diego. Pleasure to be here.
Shadeyar, how would you describe your role? How is your day to day, and what are some of the main responsibilities that you take on in this role?
So I would say it varies from a day-to-day basis, but there is a major consistency. So my role as a solutions architect primarily surrounds doing incident analysis and incident optimization. And what I mean by that is I go about looking at our large portfolio of customers, going through their incidents, seeing what's being escalated, what's not being escalated, what's being automated, and what's not being automated, and ask the question why, essentially. Why do we have these metrics? How can we make them better? How can we automate more? How can we alleviate the stress on the analysts so that we can have a more efficient environment? So, in essence, it's more so optimizing our autonomous efficiency as well as optimizing the efficiency of our CIC environment as a whole.
Correct. So you're putting it in terms of efficiency, right? So the more you can automate for the analysts, uh, the more advanced tasks they can take on. They don't necessarily need to go back to tier one and tier two tasks, but they can create strategies. They can come up with highly sophisticated playbooks so that they assist their clients accordingly, right?
Exactly. I want to be able to align our analysts' goals with that of our CEO, John Menezes. So we want to make sure that our analysts are, like you mentioned, getting rid of that L1 role and instead focusing more on becoming threat hunters and becoming advisors to our customers so that we can tackle emerging threats rather than focusing on, minute tickets here and there and doing standard triage, right? So it's a constant learning process and a constant evolution.
In terms of all possible containment actions that we can take on our client environments based on their tools and technologies in the ecosystem of cybersecurity tools, how do you prioritize your containment playbooks? What do you work on first, and how do you categorize your work?
So I would say it's a two-step approach on my side. Firstly, we tend to look at emerging threats and new attack vectors that are coming up in the entirety of the cybersecurity workspace. So we have an internal threat intelligence team who posts advisories, who looks at 0 days, and we identify IOCs, be that maybe IPs, hashes that we may need to detect. So we prioritize creating new use cases, creating new automation playbooks to block those IOCs at a rapid pace so that we can ensure all of our customers are safeguarded, and that way we're ahead of the curve in terms of detection methods. And conversely, I would say for our specific customers, since I engage with them on a day-to-day basis with our analysts, we look at what their pain points are. So we can run searches to see, what incidents are triggering the most, where's the most noise, and what can we do to tune those incidents, what can we do to automate it so that we're spending less time triaging, as I mentioned previously, and more time actually actively hunting for threats.
Correct. So you're basically saying that there should be a balance between what the client needs versus what the attack surface is telling us, right? Hey, there is a zero-day vulnerability. You need to prioritize these instead of perhaps some low-risk use cases that do not have too much of impact on the client environments, right?
Exactly. The main thing is a client's not going to know everything about their environment. That's what they have us for. So we would have full visibility, right? So they might think, we need this, we need this, we need that, but with our expertise and with our context, we're able to give them the use cases that they may not be even ready for, be prepared for, an attack vector that may come up, but we have the leverage and the knowledge to suggest that to them and deploy that for them. So that's where our handiwork comes in and where our value comes in, I would say.
So your role, it's basically a trusted advisor to the clients in order to deploy and execute these implementations and these networks based on an educated assessment, right? Based on the attack surface, based on an analysis on their tech stack, based on the user behaviors from their environment, and also based on their industries.
Exactly, you got it. It's not really a static role anymore, and we have to be able to adapt to changes like this and how attackers are adapting as well to be able to keep up within this volatile nature.
How do you incorporate artificial intelligence and automation on your work? Like when you execute and run your projects, how do you normally use AI for that?
That's a great question. So I use AI on a daily basis. It's a big part of my work, and it essentially supports me in understanding a customer's environment and developing new use cases, tuning use cases that can cater to their specific requirements. So what I would do is for any customer that I'm onboarding, for example, I would look into their log sources, their data sources, see maybe if they have Office 365, for example, a very common source. I'll use AI to say, what are the emerging threats that I need to be aware of? What sort of use cases would be relevant in this area? And, can you help me craft some? So it'll give me the basic syntax and queries, and I can use that to further develop additional enhancements and additional metrics that I can use to monitor the customer's environment. So it's a good starting spot for me to gauge a customer's environment, and it then helps me to do more correlative work to track threats and do greater detection. Additionally, I would also say with our autonomous SOC capabilities, AI has also been very crucial in providing recommendations, doing triage and consolidation, and again, going back to that previous statement, taking out the level 1 work for our analysts. So it's doing a lot of the menial tasks and the tedious tasks that don't really take too much brain power and allowing us to focus on the larger picture, right?
Correct. So basically, apart from helping you creating syntax and queries for creating the rules on some of the tools that you work with, it's helping you and guiding you to come up with the logic behind those rules, right? To come up with very complex use cases that do not just allow you to detect the threats quickly, but also to contain those threats and to provide a lot of information that enriches the incidents and enriches your investigations and also the investigations that the analysts do on a daily basis.
Correct. Yeah, I would think of it more as a sidekick, I suppose, to my daily work. It's not something you can rely on fully. You still need to have the background knowledge and know what you're asking for, but it's a really useful tool in supplementing your workload and supplementing my day-to-day tasks so that I can be more efficient overall and get the outcomes I want for my customers.
Based on your experience at this role and based on your constant communication with clients, partners, and even CIC analysts, what use cases and what recent scenarios have helped you shape your strategies towards creating these environments and basically managing your tasks effectively?
So I would say throughout my career as a solutions architect, I've worked with various customers, and although each customer has different environments, different organizational structure, and different levels of complexities in terms of the log sources that they have that need to be monitored, there's always a common pattern in terms of the same pain points and the same attack vectors that they may be exposed to. So I'm sure you're aware, phishing is a very common attack vector. Session token thefts are a very common attack vector. It's one of the newer ones that are very prominent that I've noticed. And so when I'm dealing with these different tiers of customers, there's always these common patterns and common threat scenarios that I have to prepare for. So I make sure that we have detection capabilities, the remediation capabilities to tackle these. And that may be simply creating a couple of use cases to creating playbooks that can automatically block IOCs related to these threat scenarios as soon as they occur. Customer doesn't even need to be aware of it, that we're already working efficiently in the back end, but it's one of the major considerations we have to make across the entire portfolio and the entire landscape, regardless of who we're dealing with.
Correct. So the attack surface is basically shaping some of our use cases and helping us get there before the attackers actually, cause any harm, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like this role prepares me to have that wider visibility of the entire landscape that I, wouldn't have as just like an analyst, is what I would say. And being able to interact with these customers on a daily basis gives me that leverage to be able to see ahead of time and be more proactive in taking that approach to contain threats and detect threats.
To wrap it up, Gartner has come up with a research that basically says that companies need to adopt preemptive security solutions rather than reactive security solutions if they want to stay up to date, if they want to stay current, and if they want to continue in the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you see your role developing in the next 5 years with the use of all these artificial intelligence tools and machine learning tools and whatever the technology drives us to in the next few years?
Honestly, I feel like AI is a really good tool in assisting with that proactive sort of outlook. I'm seeing my role developing more into like an AI augmented architect rather than just a strict solutions architect. So, what I mean by that is using AI on a day to day basis to look into emerging threats will allow us to create new use cases and have detection capabilities before they become mainstream, before they target our customers, right? So, we can't just be satisfied with our out of the box rules or out of the box analytics to report on threats based on what the customer might have. We need to think more in terms of what can they get down the line, what sort of attack vectors are coming up, and how can I better detect these, right? So with AI, I would say being able to keep up with those threats. Our attackers are using AI, so we have to as well, right? So uh, it'll allow us to get an edge on new emerging threat vectors. It'll allow us to be more proactive in terms of developing new solutions, developing new automation and remediation playbooks so that we're able to catch new threats, catch new IOCs before they even impact and bring down a network, right? The problem with being reactive is that the damage is already done. A threat actor is already made off with the crucial data. They're going to start asking for ransom, and we don't want that. We want to be able to minimize the damage as much as possible, and being able to do that with AI, which has a lot more visibility that we might have, it can help fill in the gaps for some of the lack of visibility, will allow us to stay ahead of the curve and keep up with the rest of the world and keep up with the threat actors and even exceed them.
So what you're saying is that there should definitely be a balance between creating reactive use cases versus creating proactive use cases, right? And these can only be possible if we analyze what's the behavior of the attackers. If we come up with a strategy that allows us to basically block the threats before they can even harm any organizations, and kind of read a little bit their minds, right? Kind of get there before they can even harm any organizations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a big part of that would be to ensure that you have a good understanding of what's emerging, or what's an emerging threat, what's an active threat. And also you can take little steps, running compliance tests, ensuring you do a proper risk assessment so that you know what your environment is made up of, what your log sources are, what your data sources are. Do you have enough encryption? Do you have enough backup? Those are some of the standard steps that you should take, and a lot of organizations I notice maybe they don't put too much priority into that or too much focus into that. But those are easy steps that you can take to be more proactive, or at least safeguard your environment. And then you can bring in MSSPs like us to assist you with widening your field of view, giving you more visibility into those new threats using AI, leveraging AI, and being ready for what's to come.
Correct. So then it's crucial to have a proper threat intelligence and threat hunting practice in place in order to accomplish what you just mentioned.
Exactly, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Shadiyar. And then I appreciate your time on this episode.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I'll see you next week on another episode of Inside the Mesh.